They noticed it the moment you stopped explaining. At first, they thought it was nothing. Just a bad mood. Just a phase. Then it happened again. And again. And suddenly, the silence was deafening. They kept asking. They kept prying. They kept poking and pushing, trying to get a reaction out of you. But you just sat there, unmoved, unbothered. That's when they felt it. The shift. You were slipping away. You see, people don't appreciate your presence until your absence starts screaming. They never cared about your explanations before. They dismissed your thoughts, ignored your reasoning, laughed at your struggles. But the second you stopped giving them a front row seat to your mind, they panicked. Because that's the thing about silence. It's terrifying. When you argued, they had power. When you defended yourself, they had control. The moment you stopped justifying, the moment you just walked away, they lost their grip on you. And now they're drowning in the very void they created. Let's be real. It wasn't always like this, was it? There was a time when you explained everything. When you tried to make them understand. When you sat there, pleading, begging, reasoning. You thought if you just explained better, if you found the right words, they'd finally see things from your side. But they didn't want to understand. They wanted to win. They wanted to twist your words, flip your reality, and leave you questioning yourself. And every time you explained, you fed them exactly what they needed. Your energy, your time, your sanity. But now you're done. No warnings, no long speeches, no desperate attempts to be heard, just silence. And that silence, it's driving them insane. Because for the first time, they're left alone with nothing but their own thoughts. No more arguments to hide behind. No more drama to escape into. Just the weight of everything they did. And it's crushing them. You stopped explaining. And they felt the distance instantly. They feel it in the unanswered messages. They feel it in the quiet way you carry yourself now. They feel it in the way you don't even bother to react anymore. And that's when they finally realize they never had power over you. You just gave them too much of yourself. And now, they're lost. Because the only thing scarier than a person who argues is a person who no longer cares. And that's exactly who you've become. A force so untouchable, so unfazed, that even their loudest screams can't reach you anymore. And that is real power. You thought power was in words, in defending yourself, in proving your worth, in making them understand. But real power, it isn't found in arguments. It isn't found in explaining. It isn't found in screaming louder, talking faster, or crafting the perfect comeback. Real power is in silence. It's in the moment you stop responding, the second you stop explaining. And they feel it, like a sudden void swallowing them whole. Because when someone stops explaining, it means one thing. They've already made up their mind. There's no convincing, no persuading, no second chances. And that's when the tables turn. The moment you go quiet, their mind starts working against them. They replay old conversations, searching for something they might have missed. They wonder if they went too far. They start doubting themselves. And that's when the real fear sets in. Because when you were explaining, they knew exactly where they stood with you. Now, they have no idea. And the unknown, that terrifies them. The psychological trap of silence. Silence is a weapon, one of the most powerful tools in human psychology. You see, when someone argues with you, they're not trying to listen, they're trying to control. They use words as distractions, manipulations, ways to twist your reality until you don't even trust your own mind anymore. And every time you explain, you play into their hands. You give them more ammo, more opportunities to twist your words, flip the narrative, make you question yourself. But when you go silent, they lose control. They lose the ability to manipulate. They lose the power they thought they had over you. Because they can't twist what they can't hear. They can't fight someone who refuses to engage. And that is the moment they start falling apart. Because the human brain hates uncertainty. It craves validation, attention, confirmation. And when you go silent, you rob them of everything they need to feel powerful. Now they're stuck with their own thoughts, and their mind becomes their own worst enemy. They start wondering, did I push too far? Are they mad at me? What if they never speak to me again? And suddenly, they're chasing after you, begging for your attention, panicking at the thought that maybe, just maybe, you don't need them anymore. The power of emotional detachment. You see, silence doesn't just scare them. It liberates you. Because the moment you stop explaining, you stop caring about what they think. And when you stop caring, you become untouchable. Nothing they say can hurt you. Nothing they do can shake you. Because now, you are operating from a place of absolute detachment. And detachment, that is where true freedom lives. Because they can't hold power over someone who refuses to react. They can't control someone who refuses to engage. And that's exactly who you are now. A force so calm, so steady, so unshaken, that their words no longer reach you. Because you understand the game now. They never wanted understanding. They never wanted peace. They wanted control. And for a long time you gave it to them. But now you've taken it back. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with something far more dangerous. With silence. And that silence, it's the loudest thing they've ever heard. There was a time when you gave everything. Your patience, your energy, your explanations. You sat across from them, looking them in the eye, pouring your soul into words, desperately trying to make them understand. You believed that if you just found the right words, the right tone, the right way to phrase it, they would finally get it. But they never did, because they never wanted to. You see, people only hear what serves them. They don't listen to understand. They listen to respond. They don't ask questions because they care. They ask because they want more fuel, more power, more control. And every time you explained, you gave them exactly that. You gave them the satisfaction of watching you bend over backwards for their approval. And that was the mistake. Because the moment you fight for someone's understanding, you put yourself beneath them. You hand them the power. You make them the judge of your worth. the second you stopped, the second you decided, no more, that's when everything changed. The moment of realization. There was a night, maybe you remember it, a night when you sat alone, staring at the ceiling. A night when exhaustion hit you not just in your body, but in your soul. You realized something so simple, yet so earth-shattering. No matter how much you explain, no matter how much you give, some people will never get it. Not because you're wrong, not because you're not good enough, but because understanding you was never their goal. Winning was. And that was the night you chose silence. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, but out of sheer clarity. You finally understood that explaining yourself to the wrong people is a form of self-betrayal. And that's when the real transformation began. The power shift. The next time they pushed, you didn't react. The next time they questioned you, you didn't answer. The next time they demanded an explanation, you simply let them wonder. And that terrified them. Because when you used to explain, they could predict you. They knew exactly what buttons to push, what words to use, how to spin the situation in their favor. But now they had nothing. No explanations to twist, no words to manipulate, no emotions to weaponize. Just silence. And in that silence, they started to unravel. Because when you go silent, people are left alone with the only voice they can't escape, their own. And suddenly, their mind becomes the battlefield. They start questioning everything. Why aren't they responding? Are they mad at me? Did I go too far? Are they done with me? And that's when the tables truly turn. Because for the first time, they feel the weight of their own actions. They feel the absence of your explanations. They feel the space you once filled with your energy. And it feels unbearable. The silent victory. You never needed to prove yourself. You never needed their validation. You never needed to explain why you are the way you are. Because the truth is, the right people don't need explanations. They see you. They respect you. They value you without you having to convince them. And the wrong people, they were never listening in the first place. So now you walk with power. Now you move with certainty. Now you understand that silence is not weakness. It's the ultimate form of strength. And when you stopped explaining, they felt the distance instantly. And they'll never forget it. There was a time when you thought silence was surrender. You thought walking away meant losing. You thought not explaining yourself meant you were weak. But now you know the truth. Silence is not surrender. It's strategy. Walking away is not losing. It's winning in disguise. Not explaining yourself is not weakness. It's power. Because the moment you stopped explaining, something shifted. Not just in them, but in you. You were never weak. You were always becoming. You spent years trying to be understood. You thought if you could just say it the right way, they'd finally see you for who you are. But they weren't blind. They just weren't looking. And that's when you realized you don't need to be seen by people who refuse to look. You don't need to be understood by people who only hear what benefits them. You don't need to be validated by people who were never on your side to begin with. And that realization, it set you free. Because now, instead of explaining yourself, you simply exist. Unapologetically. Unshaken. Unstoppable. You don't beg. You don't justify. You don't try to fit into places that were never meant for you. You just move. And suddenly, everything becomes clear. The people who needed your explanations, they were never really with you. The ones who truly understood you, they never needed an explanation in the first place. And now, as you stand here, stronger, wiser, untouchable, you realize something. They didn't abandon you. They lost you. And losing you was their biggest mistake. They tried to break you, but they built something stronger. They wanted you to react, to yell, to fight, to explain yourself over and over until you were exhausted. Because as long as you were explaining, they still had access to you. But when you stopped, they lost their grip, and suddenly they felt what it meant to be on the outside. No more control, no more manipulation, no more free access to your energy, just distance. And that distance, it was the beginning of their realization. The realization that they had something valuable, and they threw it away. The realization that they mistook your kindness for weakness, and now they have nothing left to take. The realization that all their games, all their mind tricks, all their tactics were useless against silence. Because silence, it doesn't argue, it doesn't defend, it doesn't chase, it just leaves. And now, they're stuck with their own thoughts, their own regrets, their own guilt. And you're free. You no longer need their validation. For years you thought you needed closure. You thought you needed an apology. You thought you needed them to finally admit they were wrong. But now, standing here, looking back at the person you used to be, you realize you never needed closure. You needed clarity. And now you have it. You see them for who they really are. You see yourself for who you've become. And you wouldn't trade that for anything. Because the truth is, you don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. You need only one thing: yourself. You have nothing to prove anymore. There is nothing more dangerous than a person who has nothing to prove. Nothing more powerful than someone who doesn't seek validation. Nothing more powerful than someone who doesn't seek validation. Nothing more unshakable than a mind that no longer craves permission to exist. And that's you now. Unchained, unbothered, unstoppable. And the best part, they see it too. They feel it in the way you no longer react. They feel it in the way you carry yourself. They feel it in the way your absence speaks louder than any words ever could. You stopped explaining, and they felt the distance instantly. And now they can't do anything but watch as you rise, stronger, smarter, untouchable. Because they had their chance. They had your energy, your explanations, your effort, and they wasted it. Now they'll spend forever wondering what happened. And you'll never have to answer. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of everything you used to be, and everything you're about to become. No more chasing, no more explaining, No more bending yourself to fit into places that were never meant for you. This is your turning point. Not just in how they see you, but in how you see yourself. Because the truth is, you were never weak. You were never broken. You were never lost. You just spent too much time trying to be understood by people who were never meant to understand you. But that's over now. Your silence was their wake-up call. At first, they thought nothing of it. They thought you'd come back. They thought your silence was temporary. But then, it lasted. And that's when the panic set in. Because they never thought you'd actually leave. They never thought you'd actually stop explaining. They never thought you'd actually move on without them. But here's the thing. They never deserved access to you in the first place. And now they know that. Because your silence didn't just create distance, it created regret. It forced them to sit with the reality they tried to ignore. It forced them to acknowledge the damage they caused. It forced them to realize that you were never the problem. And that realization, it's eating them alive. They will try to come back, but it's too late. They'll reach out. They'll test the waters. Message here. Casual check-in there. Because they want to know if they still have access to you. If they can still pull you back in. If they can still manipulate their way into your mind. But this time, you don't respond. Because you know what they're doing. You see through the patterns, the fake concern, the empty apologies. And you refuse to be pulled back into the cycle. Because the truth is, they only miss you because they lost control over you. They don't miss you. They miss their power over you. They miss the version of you who used to explain, justify, and beg for understanding. But that version no longer exists. You are no longer who they left behind. And that's what scares them the most. You see, they thought you would stay stuck. They thought you would keep waiting, keep explaining, keep fighting for a seat at their table. But instead, you built your own. And now, while they sit there wondering if they still matter to you, you're already miles ahead, thriving, growing, unstoppable. Because the moment you stopped explaining, something shifted inside you. Something unshakable, something permanent. You became the version of yourself they never wanted you to be. The version that doesn't need them anymore. Now, it's time to rise. This is your moment. To walk away without looking back. To rise above everything they thought would break you. To prove, not to them, but to yourself, that you were always meant for more. Because here's the truth. You owe no one an explanation for who you are. You owe no one an apology for choosing yourself. You owe no one access to your mind, your heart, your energy. You are no longer available for people who only take. And as they sit there, watching you from a distance, feeling the void you left behind, they'll finally understand something they never did before. Losing you was never part of their plan, but it was always part of yours. And now it's their turn to sit in silence. Your next move. This is where the real journey begins. No more looking back. No more seeking closure. No more waiting for them to realize your worth. Because your worth was never theirs to define. You are not here to be explained. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be controlled. You are here to become everything they said you never could. So go build, go thrive, go live. And if they ever wonder why you left, let them sit in the silence. Because the only explanation they'll ever get is the one they create in their own mind. And that's exactly what they deserve. If this hit home, if this made you rethink everything, then you know what to do. Hit subscribe for more dark, raw, and powerful truths that will change the way you see the world. Because this is just the beginning. Now go be unstoppable.